Hello and welcome back to Agency Highway. This week we have an awesome interview all about web audits and how you can use them to generate more leads and value add and a bunch of other lovely stuff with my friend Cliff Almeida. And man, I just realized that we've been chatting online for ages and I've never had to say your last name out loud. And I had to ask how to pronounce it, which is just ridiculous. This online world we live in is so strange. But thanks for joining me, man.
Thanks, James. I'm looking forward to this. Really excited, man.
So, look, let's kick it off with a bit about you, just so people know who you are, because you've been in the agency game for a long time, and now you're in the SaaS space. Similar journey to me, actually. So, yeah, let's hear a bit about your history.
Yeah, so James actually grew up overseas, moved to the US in 98. Started building my first websites in 2000. Can you believe I built my first website for $400, which was, for me, a lot of money back then, right? I don't know if you remember what your first site cost or what you charged for your first website, but that's what I charged. Now I run a web agency here in Phoenix called HireWiz. Our clients range from mom and pop startups to government agencies, and we've been lucky enough to work on some Fortune 500 businesses as well.
Damn.
I recently launched My Web Audit about a year and a half ago. Ultimately, My Web Audit is a software as a service company that helps web agencies and web professionals leverage website audits to deliver value in the sales and the lead gen process.
Awesome. So, what is a website audit and why should we care?
You know what, James? So for the most part, when people think website audit, they're thinking about some sort of automated report that's generated and passed from a web agency to a client. For us, what that means is we identify challenges and opportunities businesses can leverage to grow their business in simple terms, right? Why should agency owners care? They should care because ultimately when leveraged well, they can solve how to deliver value, build trust, and establish expertise. And those are three of the biggest challenges that people in our industry face in order to obviously close the deal. And this is also a similar challenge in the lead gen process, right? Whether you're using Facebook, cold email, LinkedIn outreach, the bottom line is no one wants to connect back to you or respond to an email or pick up a call when all they hear is a pitch without any value.
Yeah, and I can totally see that. I mean, I've loved audits. And I love what you guys are doing for a long time. I've had Darren Virapa was on the podcast a while ago, and his whole outreach strategy was all about using audits as well. And I mean, he got some pretty unbelievable rates with response rates and stuff with audits. And I can see how they would just make it so much easier to connect with your clients or potential clients when you're saying, look, here's a bunch of value. And I mean, this applies to any relationship in business, right? Like leading with value is so much more important than being like, hello, do you need a website? Which is essentially most of the cold emails I get. I know if you're listening to Agency Highway, I'm just going to assume that you are not one of those. But
exactly.
This is essentially what the podcast is too. You know, if I can reach out to people who I want to get to know and be like, hey, come on my podcast. As the first touch point, I'm going to put you in front of our audience. And that is a version of leading with value and then building a relationship over time, you know, and if we were building websites, maybe we'd do that for them. But yeah, so I can see how audits would make it so much easier.
And to add to that, James, real quick, is one of the things that I've learned is over time is a lot of the people in our industry don't really know what to include in a website audit, right?
Yeah.
So for us over with the 2 decades or so of experience, what we've realized, and this has evolved over time because website standards change over time, but the truth is there are 4 key components that we believe any agency should be reporting on when they look at a website. The first one is web design and user experience, right? That's ultimately how does the website look and how easy is it to be, used and leveraged by the end user when they visit the site. The next one is really important and gets very little focus, which is conversion optimization. Ultimately, this means what do you have on the website that turns that visitor into a lead or a customer? Those things could be reviews, awards, accolades, other trust factors. And then Obviously, performance and security. Do you have the SSL lock? You wouldn't believe how many sites now in 2019 are still missing that, right?
Mhm.
Things like ultimately page performance. Sites load in 10, 12 seconds. People are gone. Generally, if a site doesn't load, between 4 to 6 seconds max. And then obviously search engine optimization. About 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, everyone would be like SEO, and sell that as a service. But in 2019, any website you launch should have some level of search engine optimization, which simply means, are you optimizing it so that the website can actually be found and maybe positioned well in a search engine? And so those are the key areas that we report on when we build out our audits.
Yeah, and I was just thinking about the SEO thing because I was at a conference a couple of days or last week, and there was a guy that basically pulled in a bunch of audience members' sites before the event to generate some reports, and it was quite funny because there was a lot of, this is an online marketing conference, right? So you'd expect everyone was into it, but there were so many people whose homepage was like home dash whatever in the search results, like that was their title tag. I imagine that a lot of this can be automated, with the SEO and performance and all that sort of stuff, especially with a tool like My Web Audit. How do the more manual ones work, like the web design and UX type stuff? I imagine you'd have to be pretty careful treading there and saying stuff like, your design sucks. Probably not the best.
Definitely. That's a great question. So look, we didn't just come up with this application because we thought it was a great idea. In essence, we leverage this process manually, and so do hundreds, if not thousands of other agencies out there, right? So our application is a combination of manual as well as automated tools, and it's about 60-40 or 70-30. It varies based on the new audit points we put in. But in essence, for manual points such as checking for a unique selling proposition, web design, looking at their copy, ultimately we have a website extension where you can view the website on the left, and on the extension on the right, you can identify and mark whether it's passed or failed. And you have the ability, unlike any of the audit tools out there, you have the ability to put personalized notes. So for example, you might say something like, the phone number is in the top right. So you might set that as a pass, but you might say something like it's not legible, or there is no click to call, or something like that. So you can add personalized notes so that when you're speaking to a specific audience, whether your niche is a lawyer or law firms or a contractor, you can make sure that your messaging in essence resonates with them.
Yeah, that sounds freaking awesome because it's basically speeding up what is essentially a manual process, just making it easy as possible. And yeah, I mean, I can totally relate to that because that's essentially what ContentNet is doing. Different, obviously a completely different process and a different way of doing it, but yeah, I totally appreciate that. So we talked about you'd had some lessons around using audits in your agency. Like what are those?
Yeah, so this is interesting. I call it the magic, the magic points of the secret sauce, but the truth is it's common sense, right? So for nearly 4.5 years, we've leveraged audits in our business, specifically for lead gen and sales. And what we realized after a lot of trial and error is the truth is we need to make sure that our audits measure what matters. What I mean by that is when you start talking about fave icons and sitemap.xml to a business owner, you lose them. Their eyes glaze over. They're like, this is beyond me. I don't even understand why it matters to me. So making sure that, you speak about what actually matters to the business owner or to the company, that's, I would say, the most important thing to keep in mind. The second one is prioritizing information, right? When you're giving them a report, whether it's 3 pages long or whether it's 20 pages long, make sure you prioritize what you report on based off of their goals, right? So for example, when I work with companies where they have 10 or 15,000 visitors coming in already, I don't speak to them heavily about marketing tactics. I talk to them about conversion optimization because their problem there is less about getting more traffic and more about converting the traffic into leads and customers, right?
Yeah, totally.
And the last one was making sure that the information is presented in a way that could be understood and valued. And that's probably one of the biggest factors that my web audit differentiates itself from others, is that all the copy is positioned specifically for the business owner and not the web agency, SEO, or the developer that's on the back end that's going to be typing stuff. So we don't talk about the techie, cryptic stuff. We speak about specifically when we talk, for example, about mobile optimization, we talk about the fact that that's a standard for SEO, that there is a new, there's new studies that show more people using mobile than desktop. We talk about conversion rate optimization on mobile versus telling them you need responsive grid design, which most people have no clue what that means, right?
Yeah, and number one and number three there were kind of related, right? And this comes down to pretty much everything in business. It should be in terms of things that they understand and things that they care about, right? Like not having a favicon or something, or having that could be rephrased as you just look like a goose, or it looks unprofessional is probably the better words to use in that situation. Everything can be rephrased in a way that the business owner is going to understand.
Exactly. And that's what we do. Every time we add a new point in or we're leveraging something, we need to make sure that if that change is made, the business owner generally within 1 day to 30 days could see some sort of difference, right? Whether that's branding for appearance or user experience, or literally can help lead to better conversions. And then ultimately, you want to make sure that you can figure out how to make these changes so you can measure return on investment, right? Remember, probably you probably faced this challenge earlier on when you did do websites was, hey, we want to charge $15,000 for this website, and you realize that business owner only has maybe 3,000 to 5,000. So what we do is we measure what matters and then figure out how best to deliver on investment, take those action items, solve them if they can invest in a full website. They'll see the results, and then it's much easier to help convert them into, a full redesign or into cross-sell other services we offer.
Yeah, you just got me thinking there that an audit would actually be you're kind of killing a couple of birds there. You could build this in your process where you just go and audit leads, and then when the time comes to actually do it, you just give the audit you gave to the client to your team, who go and action that, and you don't even have to set up a project. You just go, look, here's what you've got to do. Go and create the project.
And it's hilarious that you say that, because you had Brad come on a couple of weeks ago, and the way Brad and myself connected was Brad reached out to me and he was like, dude, some of our customers keep exporting a list and they keep saying it's coming from my web audit for our team to execute. And that's literally what they did, right? They run our application because obviously, we've put in 20 years of experience into this. So some agency owners are just starting out, others are maybe further ahead. But long story short, we have an actionable list. And so when they run this audit, they can literally export it and put it into their project management system or pass it as a task list to the developers. And it's already prioritized by impact, and boom. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. So good. All right. So what should we talk about next? We've talked about generating leads. I know, are there other benefits?
Yeah. So what I would say is, look, ultimately, those of y'all that don't use web audits of some sort, understand this. As an agency owner, I can tell you that when I speak to companies of all sizes, the biggest challenges I face are being able to personalize my services to their needs, right? So I can tell them things like, we do web design. What does that mean other than to them a better looking website? When I tell them SEO, they think ranking, right? And so ultimately, when I run an audit, I'm able to then visually show them, instead of telling them specifically what we can do for their business. By running an audit, the other awesome thing we just talked about is we're able to identify challenges and opportunities that you're probably not going to get just by looking at a website for 5 or 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And trying to, say, hey, bad design, which is usually what people say, and then they try to sell their services. The other cool thing is you're leading with value and you're giving them so much information. You're able to establish your expertise by showing them again versus telling them. And by doing that, you build trust. It helps you prioritize. And then the biggest one is it helps you stand out from the competition, because all of us out there know that generally when someone comes in to speak to us about a website redesign or search engine optimization, they're usually speaking to 3 or 4 people. And by leveraging website audits, especially the ones that we create, ultimately we can generate them in 5 to 10 minutes, but we have 20 to 30 pages, depending on what we want. We can prioritize and show that to them. And when they look at that, they're like, wow, this company spent hours creating it, right? And that's the
Yeah.
secret sauce.
And I don't want to do any of this, so can you do it for me? Because it's way too much. It just got me thinking there. Like, do you ever recommend charging for audits? Like almost kind of like a tripwire offer or whatever you want to call it?
That's a great question. So I tell agencies that are busy and are doing well, definitely charge. So we have in our agency community, we have 3 sets of users. One, people that are just looking to generate more leads and close more deals because they're going month to month, right? Just trying to fill up their pipeline. For them, I tell them, offer them, in essence, a summary audit or offer a full audit and then just try to close them in. Then we have a second group of people, which in essence will charge anywhere from $599 to $2,000 or so. And we'll offer a consulting hour or two and then an hour or two of work with the audit.
Right.
And then we have a few other people that charge anywhere from $2,000 up. And then in essence, they use that as a workshop. They will, they'll do an in-depth audit for the website. They'll do some marketing work, and then, they'll put together a full profile that they can use to, sell them on, in essence, a full digital marketing package, which includes a website.
Nice. Yeah.
I highly recommend charging whenever possible. But if your pipeline is empty, you got to do what you got to do to get people in the door and delivering, making sure you position it as, high value offer, and making sure that you qualify and prospect effectively also matters, right? You don't want to give a barber, for example, a free website audit who charges $15 or $20 for a haircut and then try to sell them on a $5,000 project. That won't work.
I mean, yeah, that's the same with everything, right? Like trying to focus on people that are actually going to be able to afford your services. I mean, this is something we're probably both familiar with in the SaaS game as well. It's like,
yes.
When you've got bigger clients, they're usually more willing to sign up and all that sort of stuff. So there was just one thing I wanted to cover because Darren, the previous episode that I mentioned, which I'll link up in the show notes, about outreach with audits. Now, he would do this thing where he'd message people and say like, oh, we've just done an audit on your site. Would you be interested in seeing it? And obviously at this point, he has not done the audit yet. Because this is bigger numbers. And when they respond yes, they quickly jump on, do the audit and send it to them and make it look like they've done all this work. Obviously, that means that all those messages that you send, like if they don't read it or don't respond, then you haven't wasted that work. Have you seen that done? Do you recommend that?
Yeah, we see that done. We recommend that. In essence, the way we approach it. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to just give you a quick framework that we leverage, and then I'll tell you how it works in there, right?
Okay.
So we use a framework that's called GIVE, Generosity, Information, Value, Education, right? So generosity, the part where you're referring to with the lead gen is, by giving them something of value, you're able, you're being generous, you're giving them something of value, then you're giving them information about specifically how to deal with an expensive problem they're having. And then the value is connecting the dots, specifically saying how, a poor responsive site or, a site that's not set up for conversion optimization is losing them leads. And then specifically you're educating them by telling them, specifically what results they can get by solving the problem. So this GIVE framework, whether it's used and leveraged in the sales process or lead gen process, for the most part matters. And so just like Darren, what we recommend you do is, reach out, find common threads. So first things we do is say, hey, look, if you're in a niche with a winning case study or two, reach out to them by saying, hey, look, my name is Cliff. I work in the home remodel space here in Phoenix. I wanted to reach out to 1 or 2 other companies and let them know 10 common things that, that remodel companies are missing that are helping that, that are causing them to lose more than 50% of their leads. And here are here are 5 of them. And I'd like to give you 5 specific ones that I noticed on your site, right? So they're like, oh, what's the competition doing? This guy has established his authority. That's one way to do it. If you call people, same thing. Hey, hey, my name's Cliff. I want to let you know I'm not selling you anything. Ultimately, we're doing some industry research here in the Valley for home remodel companies. We've identified 10 common problems that people are facing. And we noticed that you guys have at least 5 of those 10. Who do I send the audit to? And then usually the gatekeeper is more than happy to then offer an email. And then I just say, hey, I spoke to Jane, who was the gatekeeper, and she recommended I speak to you about your website audit. Would you like to set up a strategy call? Here's 3 things we found. And we have an automated process in My Web Audit that helps you do this. We could either import in websites, and it could run automatically and give me these talking points that I can do into mail merge, or ultimately we have a dozen different templates for all these different outreach opportunities.
Nice. So these audits are much more automated. They're not so much like the manual ones where you're checking on design and UX and all that.
Yeah, great question. So we've built this from the ground up for our sales and lead gen process. So we've split up that system into 2. You can run automated audits that can be fed directly from your agency website, from landing pages, wherever else you want, or you could do full audits manually and send them out.
Gotcha. Yeah, cool. And that was going to be my next question, is using this on inbound leads, because I know you guys have like a widget or something, right? Where they assume they stick their URL in and then can generate their own audit right there on your website. So let's talk a little bit about that.
That's correct. Yep. So look, everyone still uses some variation of a lead magnet, or most people should be doing that. The most common one is, hey, 5 ways to generate more leads on your website, or 10 mistakes of hiring a web designer. And those are great. They serve their purpose. But think about it this way. What would it look like in your business if a coach or consultant came in and gave you 5 or 10 actionable ways that you could grow your business specifically to you, versus a standard PDF that they're giving out to 1,000 other people, right?
Yeah.
And that's how we position, in essence, the website audits directly on the website. So we have 2 workflows. Simply put, someone can come in and fill it in, and you can set up a workflow that automatically sends them the audit, or another workflow, which is the one we recommend because we believe in being able to deliver value and speak to people in order to sell. And we don't sell $2,000 websites. So every person we speak to, we ultimately make sure we qualify, and then we set up a strategy call. So our workflow is fill out the audit form. It sends them a message saying, hey, thanks so much. Our team's working quickly on this. We'll try to get back to you in the next 24 hours. And then we send them an email saying, hey, the audit is ready. We'd love to set up a strategy call. Fill out this intake form. That way we can get some, ideas about what their main problems are, what is their budget, what are the expectations, and then we connect those responses with the audit, and then we present it to them.
Yeah, nice. I mean, I'm just thinking of how many opportunities there are here, and like, I don't know whether it would work, but running ads to free audits that's probably something I'd give a go if I was still doing that kind of thing.
Yep. So the most common lead generation options for My Web Audit, or just if you're using any sort of audit system and you can deliver value up front, is connect with past clients. That would be my first thing. I'll give you like 5 actionable things that you can do within the next few hours to get some results, right? The first one would be reaching out to past clients. Like you can't reach out to them and say, hey, I'd love to work with you again, but you could look at their sites and say, hey, look, I looked at your site in the last year and a half. I wanted to reach out to you and would love to work with you again. I just realized that there's 6 things that are missing on your site that have not been done. And then you can say, I'd love to offer you a website audit. That's one way. Everyone knows or should know that it's much easier to sell your services to people who've already paid you. So reach out to your existing clients, right? Be an expert. Run an in-depth audit. Look at areas of opportunity or challenges. Present those to them as you being proactive, and solve them, right? So if you built a site 2 years ago that didn't have, page speed optimization or an SSL, which they should now, reach out to them, offer that. If you do SEO now, cross-sell that service. Another one is, if you've spent time investing, and I know you do this really well, James, is you're in several groups and you add value all the time. Reach out to people that are your target audience on LinkedIn and Facebook, and offer a website audit. Now, don't tell them like, hey, I do web design and would love to offer you a free audit. No, position it as, hey, I'd love to do a website teardown of 3 or 4 companies in X niche as a way of delivering value back to this group. All you have to do is DM me or comment below, right? That's it.
Nice. That's awesome.
And then obviously this is a great way to offer value at networking events, right? Whether you're in a BNI or a local chamber of commerce whatever that may be. Instead of telling them, hey, I do website audits, would you like to have a call with, I mean, I do website audits, or I do web design or SEO, would you like to set up a consultation call? No one really wants to hear that. I think you can position it as, hey, I'd love to give you, a growth audit or a website assessment or a growth assessment of your business. Would you mind just giving me your, name and email, and I'll get that out to you, or I'll set up a strategy call with you. And that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, man, I like that. It sounds extremely powerful. Now, I know you're pretty short on time, so is there anything else you still want to cover, or do you have to get out of here?
I got about 10 or so minutes. One of the things that I wanted to also share with you is the fact that this is a really great, website audits in general, not just my web audit, are a great way to generate revenue. So, we talked a little bit about the lead generation process, but I'm just going to cover a couple of points here specific to the sales process, right? So, James, whether we're selling SaaS or whether we're selling websites, the bottom line is that if we can build trust, establish expertise, and deliver value, the chances are really good that we're going to be able to close the sale. So website audits help you do that. So it helps you close more deals faster. The other big thing is that it helps you get your foot in the door. Not every prospect or every lead you end up, bringing into your pipeline is going to have the funds for a full website redesign or for a full SEO or whatever core service you offer. And so by, in essence, prioritizing what matters and breaking that down into smaller chunks, you're able to get your foot in the door and then build rapport. And then, in essence, they say interactions over time build trust. And then you can close them on the core service later. It's a great product. It's a great productized service. This is another thing that you've spoken on your show. I think that was with Lee just lately. Like, ultimately, you could put that on your site and just use that as a gateway. You can call it a tripwire, lead magnet, however we're going to ultimately process it based off of what works in your business. Do it. And this works really well for care plans or retainers, where literally, you could reach out to existing clients, or when people come into your pipeline, build a long list of things and say, hey, look, I know you don't have 10 grand to pay me today, but how about I put you on a $500 retainer for the next 12 months and see what we can get done. And the last one is easy money. What I say is, if you've only focused on web design, or you're only focused on SEO, literally run an audit and cross-sell services like conversion rate optimization, SEO, social media, page optimization. You wouldn't believe how many tens of thousands of dollars, I'm saying tens of thousands of dollars, we've generated in the last few months only on page optimization, man. Like, companies that care about their conversion rates and care about the SEO are willing to pay. And so when you can show them, GT metric scores or the new Google page speed scores, and they're looking at an F or an E, they're like, holy moly, right? And they're willing to invest in it. And that's the type of stuff we report on.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I've seen a lot of web design companies doing that lately, actually, is positioning themselves as CRO, conversion rate optimization, people, or, something like that, where it's more about conversions. And I can see why that is, because people who already have traffic and care about conversions are generally going to have higher budgets, I would imagine, than someone who's got a new website that doesn't have any traffic.
That's right. And that brings up the topic that I was talking to you about earlier about the leaky bucket theory, right? So James, most business owners, when they reach out to companies and we talk to them and we ask them, like, hey, what's your most expensive problem? What's your biggest goal? And they're like, I need more visitors. The truth is the leaky bucket theory says, ultimately you can pour as much water as you want into a bucket full of holes and it'll never retain the water, right? I don't know if you heard that. And so I tell business owners, look, you might want Facebook, you might want Google, you might want SEO, but start with those 4 core pillars I spoke about on your website, so you retain the visitors and you can convert them effectively. And so, yeah, definitely. That's really, really important.
Awesome. So I think, should we wrap it up there, you think?
I'm good, dude. If you have any other questions specific to specific to audits, I'm happy to answer them. I just caught myself moving back.
Yeah, the microphone has been going a little silly, and hopefully we can pick it up in post-production. If not, I apologize, but that's just the way of the internet sometimes. It likes to do these kind of things. But I saw that you were putting together a deal for Agency Highway people. Are we going to run that at myweboaudit.com/AH, obviously the abbreviated
Yes.
for Agency Highway. What can people see there?
If they go to that link that you just mentioned, they will get a free trial. Once they join in, have them drop a line that just says that they heard this podcast and or watched it on YouTube or wherever, or drop your name, and we'll be happy to throw them in a couple extra bonuses as well as a special discount for when they're ready to sign up.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. That was at myweboaudit.com/AH. And of course, I will throw that in the show notes. It's early here. Give me a break. I can't even speak properly. I'm glad that you did a lot of the speaking, Clef, because I don't do well on these early calls. You bloody Americans in your different time zone than us. Gosh.
No, I appreciate it.
Man, thanks for coming on. This has been awesome. I think there's so much actionable stuff in there that agencies can use. Go check out My Web Audit. Yeah, and Cliff, thanks for joining me.
Thanks so much, James. Peace.